The clang of armored feet echoed through the crystal-veined corridors of Virexis Prime's central citadel. Towering Drexery warriors moved with primal grace, their lupin features glistening under the arc lights above. Broad shoulders, razor-tipped gauntlets, and eyes like molten gold marked them as apex predators, genetically engineered over millennia for war, domination, and honor. Among them, weaving unnoticed like a shadow among giants, was Eli Kale. He wasn't much to look at, average height, wiry build, and soft human features that contrasted sharply with the brutal elegance of the Drexery. His Earth-standard uniform, worn and utility-packed, barely reached the knees of most Drexery around him. Whispers trailed behind him wherever he walked. Soft blood. No claws. How does it breathe this high in the hierarchy? The more polite ones simply stared. The cruel ones laughed. Eli had grown used to it. Assigned as a systems analyst and xenolinguist, Eli wasn't here by choice. The Unified Pact had sent him to Virexis Prime as part of a fragile cooperation treaty. In truth, he was more of a political token than a useful envoy, one human in a nest of warlords. He'd spent weeks embedded in the Citadel's data vaults, working alone and unnoticed, until yesterday. Yesterday, he'd done something none of the Drexery had in 4 decades. He'd activated the Worm Key. The Worm Key was a cryptic war device buried beneath layers of alien code and ancient Drexery dialects, part puzzle, part relic, all forbidden. It had been locked since the War of the Twin Moons, its purpose long lost to even the highest-ranking generals. Eli, alone and unsupervised, had cracked its interface. He hadn't even meant to. It was a side project to keep his mind sharp. When the Citadel's entire eastern wing pulsed with dormant power, alarms sounded and guards swarmed in. They found Eli standing beside the reactivated core, eyes wide, fingers still hovering over the holographic console. He was dragged before the High Triad. "What trickery is this?" One of them snarled, their voice like gravel grinding steel. "It's not a trick," Eli said, voice shaking but firm. "It was a linguistic algorithm error. You were using pre-war root logic. I just adjusted the syntax." They laughed. Not in amusement, in disdain. "You claim superiority over our sacred code?" The words were meant to humiliate. Before they could dismiss him or execute him, another voice boomed from the shadows. "Leave him." Silence struck the hall like a thunderclap. All heads turned. Tharnak the Unbroken stepped forward. The ancient Drexery war chief hadn't attended council in years. Towering even among his kind, he was a legend made flesh, his fur streaked with silver, his shoulders a fortress of living muscle. His armor was blackened, battle-worn, etched with the sigils of fallen enemies. One glowing eye, the other lost to a war no one dared speak of. He was the last of the Bloodborne, an elite line bred not just to kill, but to lead. "Who are you to speak for the soft blood?" a younger commander barked. "I am the last voice this council should doubt," Tharnak growled. "And I see wisdom in the small one." He turned to Eli, nostrils flaring, as if scenting something no one else could. Eli tried not to tremble. Later that day, while walking the subchambers, Eli found himself cornered by a Drexery brute named Varesh. A rising star, full of pride and cruelty, Varesh had taken offense to Eli's newfound attention. "You think solving an old code makes you one of us, softling?" Varesh sneered. "Your pet. A toy they find amusing." Eli didn't reply. He didn't need to. He reached into his satchel and calmly pulled out a small holographic slate. "Actually, it makes me someone who can access this." The slate flickered to life, showing a map of the Citadel's underlayers, areas even Varesh wouldn't dare enter. The Drexery snarled, stepping forward, clawed hand raised. Then came the sound. Heavy. Measured. Tharnak's footsteps. The brute froze. Everyone did. Tharnak said nothing at first. He stepped between Eli and Varesh, eyes locked on the younger warrior. A silent threat passed between them. "This one," Tharnak said finally, laying one massive hand on Eli's shoulder, "has done what your entire command could not. You mock him because you fear what you do not understand. That is not strength. It is weakness wrapped in pride. The hall remained quiet as Tharnak walked away, Eli in tow. They didn't speak for a long time after that. Not until they stood at the edge of the Citadel's outer decks, overlooking the molten rivers below. "I didn't ask for any of this," Eli said finally. "I just wanted to do my job and go home." "I did not ask to be the last of my kind," Tharnak replied. "But here we stand." Eli glanced up at him. "Why defend me?" Tharnak looked out into the burning sky. "Because the first time I saw you, you were alone in a chamber of dead machines, trying to wake them. You reminded me of someone." "Who?" "My brother." The wind howled through the deck grates. Eli didn't know what to say. The word hung heavy in the air. Not metaphor. Not flattery. Something deeper. Before Eli could ask more, alarms blared again, this time louder, more urgent. In the distance, black wings sliced through the storm clouds. Ships not marked with Drexery or human colors. Tharnak growled. "Kareth Voltari." Eli looked up. "War." Tharnak bared his fangs. "Not yet. But soon." And for the first time, Eli didn't feel small. He felt necessary. Ash rained down from the skies of Virexis Prime, darkening the already bruised horizon. The Citadel's once impenetrable defenses lay fractured, its majestic spires flickering with dying power. Smoke coiled through shattered corridors, the scent of ionized metal and scorched flesh thick in the air. The Kareth Voltari had breached the outer rings in a sudden, coordinated strike. They moved like phantoms, black-armored, six-limbed invaders with jagged weapons and no voices. Only death announced their arrival. Eli Kale stumbled through the wreckage, a plasma pistol clutched in one trembling hand. He wasn't trained for war. His knowledge lived in code and language, not combat. But survival made soldiers of all men. The communication towers had fallen. The Drexery defense grid was crippled. Somewhere deep in the Citadel, Tharnak was fighting alone. The overhead lighting stuttered, casting frantic shadows. Behind him, another explosion ripped through a power relay. Eli ducked into a maintenance shaft just before the fire blast could sear him. The drone in his satchel sparked dead. His HUD blinked static. A figure loomed at the end of the shaft. For a heartbeat, Eli froze, until the figure spoke. "You're late," Tharnak growled. He was bloodied, one arm scorched from wrist to elbow, his armor cracked and dripping with alien ichor. But he still stood tall, sword in one hand, a massive thermal disruptor slung across his back. "I was waiting for the cavalry," Eli said, breathless. "You are the cavalry now." Tharnak offered no humor in the words, only truth. Together, they moved through the Citadel's ruined veins, heading toward the central core. The Kareth were targeting the energy nexus, a last kill switch that, if destroyed, would render the entire Drexery homeworld defenseless. Every general was presumed dead. Tharnak and Eli were the only ones who knew the hidden tunnels beneath the core. Eli had mapped them during his silent weeks of isolation. Now those forgotten hours were the only chance left. As they advanced, they passed the bodies of warriors, Drexery and Kareth alike. Tharnak paused over each Drexery corpse, offering a guttural chant in their native tongue. Eli didn't interrupt. It wasn't the time. At a collapsed passageway, Tharnak bent to lift a fallen support beam. His muscles bulged, veins like roots under obsidian fur. The weight looked impossible. He grunted, shifted, then slammed the beam aside. Eli crawled through first, turning to offer a hand. Tharnak ignored it, pulling himself through with a beast's growl. Deeper in, the tunnel narrowed. The hum of alien weapons grew louder. The Kareth had found the core's outer gate. "We're out of time," Eli whispered. Tharnak activated his disruptor. "Then we take it back." The assault was swift, brutal. Eli ducked and rolled while Tharnak tore into the enemy, like a storm given form. His blade glowed blue with charged heat, carving through alien armor. Eli used his pistol sparingly, aiming with calculated precision. One shot, one kill. He disabled a Kareth comm node with a stolen plasma grenade, preventing reinforcements from being called. They fought until the last Kareth fell twitching at their feet. But the core was already unstable. Eli rushed to the control panel, fingers flying across the cracked interface. It's overclocked. They rigged the energy feedback loop to implode. I can reroute the discharge, but... Do it, Tharnak said. If I do, this room floods with radiation. You won't survive. Tharnak said nothing. Eli looked at him. I said you won't survive. You will, Tharnak replied. That's enough. Eli clenched his jaw. I'm not leaving you behind. You must. No, Eli said. I'm not your servant. I'm not a symbol. I'm your brother, remember? Tharnak paused. For once, no words came from the ancient war chief. Only silence. Then together, then. Eli smiled grimly. Together. He rerouted the system manually, bypassing fried circuits, reweaving data paths through scorched fibers. Sweat poured down his face. Tharnak stood at his back, holding the core door closed with brute strength as tremors rattled the foundation. Seconds passed like lifetimes. Then the system reset. Power returned. The overload diffused. The core stabilized. Eli collapsed against the console, heaving. Tharnak slumped to one knee beside him, coughing smoke. Not bad, the beast rasped. Eli nodded. Not bad for a soft-blood. Laughter echoed in the chamber. Deep, ragged, real. Outside, Drexery survivors emerged from their bunkers. As comms were restored, messages flooded in, fragmented but hopeful. Reinforcements from the southern moons had arrived. The citadel still stood. But no one had seen Eli and Tharnak emerge. Not yet. A hush blanketed the grand courtyard of Virexis Prime as the suns broke through the ash-heavy sky. The citadel stood bruised but unbroken, its spires casting long shadows over thousands gathered below. Drexery citizens, warriors, elders, and offspring filled the plaza in uneasy silence. News had spread like wildfire. Commander Tharnak was dead. The small human, too. Both had perished defending the core, or so the council said. A memorial pyre of obsidian stone stood at the center, cold and waiting. Then came the tremor. A deep, low vibration that thrummed through the foundation of the city. Heads turned. Anticipation snapped taut. From the northern causeway, blackened and half-collapsed, emerged a silhouette too broad to be human, too proud to be broken. Tharnak. He limped forward, battered but unbowed, supporting someone at his side. Eli, covered in grime and dried blood, leaning heavily on the Drexery warrior, Eli squinted into the daylight, shielding his eyes. As they stepped into the courtyard center, the entire plaza seemed to forget how to breathe. The sight shattered every certainty spoken in the last 24 hours. The council stood frozen on the upper dais. The crowd murmured, then gasped, then fell into a reverent silence. A Drexery youth near the front, Varesh's younger brother, scoffed just loud enough to carry. A human survives while warriors fall? What honor is this? Tharnak's eyes locked on the boy. He moved forward without ceremony, raising one clawed hand. Not in threat but proclamation. This human did not survive. He endured. He bled beside me, fought beside me, faced death, and did not retreat. No one spoke. He did what some of you would not, Tharnak continued, voice rising like thunder rolling through a canyon. And when the moment came to leave me behind, he chose instead to die at my side. Eli shifted, clearly in pain, but remained standing. Tharnak looked down at him, then back to the crowd. His next words were not shouted. They were whispered, yet they struck like warhammers. He is my brother. The words rippled outward like a shockwave. Shock, disbelief, awe. Among the Drexery, to call another brother was no metaphor. It was a vow. An oath that rewrote blood and bound two souls beyond lineage or species. It had not been spoken in a generation. A high elder broke from the dais, stepping forward with slow, deliberate steps. Tharnak, you invoke the right of equinox? With an off-world, I do, Tharnak growled. You understand its weight, its permanence. I do. Then bring him forward. Eli blinked. Wait. What's happening? Tharnak crouched, pressing one massive hand to Eli's chest. You will stand, no matter how weak your body feels, because the strength that matters is in your choice to be here. Eli straightened. The ceremony was brief, but in Drexery tradition it might as well have split the world. Tharnak and Eli each pressed their right palms against the ancestral stone, a slab carved from the first forge of Drexery warriors. Their blood, his crimson, Eli's red, was drawn, mingled, and sealed with a brand across their skin. As the fire burned the mark into his flesh, Eli gritted his teeth but didn't cry out. He stared into the glowing embers of the ancient forge, and for the first time, he saw not fear or mockery in Drexery eyes, but something closer to reverence. When it was done, the crowd stood stunned. Some knelt, others bowed, but no one laughed. Later, in the echoing calm of the war chamber, Eli sat on a bench of obsidian alloy, watching the sun crawl along the fractured wall. You didn't have to do that, he said. Tharnak stood beside him, arms folded, silent. Eli turned to him. I was just a translator, a technician. I was never meant for this. You were never meant to hide, Tharnak replied. And yet you did, until it was time to stop. Eli looked at the branded symbol now seared into his palm. What now? Tharnak glanced at the holograph flickering beside them. New battle reports, a reformed council list, emissaries requesting an audience. Now we rebuild, and they will need both warriors and thinkers, teeth and minds. Eli smirked. And which one am I? Tharnak smiled for the first time in days. You are both. And that is what frightens them most. Outside, the Drexery banners that once flew only in blood red now bore streaks of midnight blue, the human color. Unity, however fragile, had taken root, and in the shadow of a war that nearly ended them all, the galaxy would remember the day their fiercest warrior called the smallest outsider something sacred. Brother.